Good morning. This is another creative moments, one of many with Theresa with the Zulabee Wiley Public Library. I'm still trying to make sure I'm like halfway adequate on lighting. Let's see if I can get it up on my page so that I can see what it looks like. There we go. Ooh, I think y'all are seeing too much of my gut. Whatever, we'll deal with it. You can see a lot of my table, see the mess that I have going on. It seems like every time I film, it's like a new day. So today we're going to play with something that I got inspired by, of course, going on Pinterest, and I was looking for something completely different, and I saw these little houses, and I'm like, oh, I want to play with that because I have lots of spare parts, lots of scrap wood. So this is the first one that I created. And since you're looking down, I have to hold it sideways, but you can see back, sides, front. This was a spare piece of scrap 2x4 that I had. This was a piece of leftover fencing. You can find that in nearly any of the older neighborhoods. So I painted it blue. I was trying to go for a really rustic look. I have to say that I'm not real happy with this finish. Everything else about this piece I love though. Although I realized that I didn't do my windows the way most of them are being done, and I actually have modified that for some of the others. This one already had some nail holes in it, so I put this barren little tree in there. I put little nails in, made like something of a little fence. Couldn't find my wire. If I'd have found my wire, I probably would have put wire on there, but I really like the way the twine looks. Little bitty heart here on the door, because you know it's home. This was a little scrap piece of wood. And then I just wanted something to kind of break up the lines. So I put this old piece of something kind of beaten up, and I just nailed that in there. And then tree bark for my roof. I really like the rusticness. Like I said, I may paint it a different color and change my window, but this was my first attempt, came out pretty good. So then I wanted to go a little smaller. So I actually had craft wood. You know, you can get it at Michael's, Home Depot, anywhere. It's a little bit lighter than the 2x4. So I cut out these shapes. This is what that would look like before it got to this stage. I was cutting a shorter, this is a 25-degree angle, this is a 45-degree angle. I really like the way this looks on some of the pieces, but on this one, I didn't measure anything. I just cut it into pieces. This one's kind of got a two-sided roof. Like I said, I didn't measure, so it's not the same on either side. This one's a little off-centered. I like the eclecticness of this. I also like the brighter colors of this one too. And as you can see on this one, I painted the windows white and then put the little dark squares on there. I think this works better for not trying to be realistic. I have little pieces of wood that I painted. This one, I like this. It's a part of, it was some kind of railing piece of wood that I had. So I like that rounded shape. Just glued and nailed those on there. And then these kind of have the look of a little chimney. Now this planter didn't plan very well because that chimney's going to go right in that window that I painted there. So I feel sorry for whoever's sleeping in here because that's probably a bedroom. And as you can see, I haven't painted the black on there yet because I'm trying to decide if I need to get rid of that window. You know, I know it's not realistic, but still. There was a nail hole in here. I had pulled the nail out, but I stuck this really big nail. It's about that big in there, so that's what the nail looked like. I had this little metal lid to a container, so I glued that on there to try to create the effect of a street light. I'm trying to decide if I need to do anything else to that part of it. Now, here's where I'm like at a loss on this piece, because I really want to put this bear on here. But the bear's pretty big. The bear's like, would barely be able to go in through here. I don't think he'd be able to go in that house at all. But I think the bear is probably going to become attached to this piece somehow. I don't know. I've had this bear for a long time. It was a charm. I had to cut the metal off of the top, but I don't know. I can't commit. You know, that's just the way life is. Now, what I could do instead of the bear is I could put like a little pine cone on there. I thought I had one that didn't have the stem on it. Create a little bush, but that doesn't quite suit me either. Now, I could put some greenery around it just to add a different element to it. I could, you know, put the little nails in, create a fence along here. I could have a tree going on over on this side. I just realized I'm not really happy with the barrenness of these trees. Using sticks, so I think I'm gonna rethink this because it's like colorful. So that's one that I did that I'm gonna finish. And I know a lot of people make these and they make them singularly so that you have them like building blocks and you set them down and you can rearrange them in your house. I actually am creating this to be a wall hanging. I'm gonna put something, attach it to the back so that it can sit on a wall. Now, I gotta make sure nothing falls apart. These little houses are screwed on the bottom. It's easier if you drill pilot holes before you start, especially through this older wood because it will crack if it gets a little tension, and you gotta make sure you don't screw it in too tightly because that'll make it crack also. But, so I really like this one. I just gotta figure out, I just know I need a little element over here. I gotta decide whether I'm gonna commit to the bear. Okay, so this is another, okay. So you have your 2x4, you have your wood. So you want to sand your edges, get rid of all the splinters. So I actually kind of enjoy doing this. Now you can kind of leave the roof part a little rough, but you want to make sure that you get all your corners sanded. Get rid of those just really sharp edges. Sand around the bottom. Sand it up really nice. And then I have found that this takes paint better if I prime the wood with white or I gesso it. So if you don't want to do that, this one I'm working on, I stained it. So this is just a piece of wood that was cut at that, I think that's the 45-degree angle. And I stained it because I was working on a different look. I actually have some of this, it looks like corrugated metal roof, although I know if it rains, that's not the way it's supposed to go. It should go the other way, but it fit perfectly on this piece of wood like this. So you know, make sure that I have a hole. Then I put that nail in there to be my chimney stack. Now on this one, I was going to put a little yellow door, paint it yellow, whitewash it a little, put some brown to kind of rough it up to go along with the rest of it. Now, I do want to show you a trick on the windows. So I want the door, I think I want it to open up that way. No, I wanted it to cover that up right there. So, because I know I want the door there, but I know I'm going to want a window here. So before I put the door on, I'm actually going to figure out where I want the window. This has kind of got some measurements to it, and I'm going to use this as my template. Now, I have a white charcoal pencil, and I'm going to draw my window on there. Using this template just makes it a little bit easier. And I actually kind of did that upside down. Makes it easier. Like if I wanted, like I know my door is going to be there. I'm going to have a window there. If I want to have like a little octagonal, or, you know, I could put an oval window. That's like a stop sign. I could put one of these up here. I think I might actually do that. Just, well, it doesn't want to, I might have to use a different pen. Okay, so I have my template there. Take some white paint. Paint in your window, and it's a lot easier. Most of my first windows were freehand. I'm like, oh, they're different sizes, but that adds to the charm and the rusticness. So, you know, by all means, if you feel comfortable doing it that way, I'm just trying to give you options if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Now, of course, you can also get little pieces of wood and use those. And I always have trouble painting in front of you guys. Old lady shakes. Okay, so I would make sure, I'd probably go over that twice to make sure I got a nice white background. And then we'd let that dry before we go in there and put in the little black squares. Now, let's see. I also have other things that I could put on here. This is a charm. It almost looks like a big wreath. You could glue that on there. I have thumbtacks that you can use that make it look like a light. Let your imagination run wild when you're looking at how you want to do these things. Now, how I attach most of these things indoors is I use E6000. It's, you know, it's one of my favorite adhesives. I love using it. So we just put some on there. It's not going to take a lot. Just, you're less likely to glue your fingers together if you use that. Okay, I got to remember how I want my door to be positioned. So then I would just put that on there. When that glue dries a little bit, I will take this little bitty tack nail, and I will, I could have put it on there prior to, I probably should have. I will nail that on there, and that'll be my doorknob. That's what has been my doorknobs on all of my houses. So, now, this house I am planning to put on this piece of wood. It did have a nail hole in it already. I've been trying to decide. These are little bitty roses that I personally had and dried, and you can tell I waited to dry it when it started drooping over. I have this doesn't quite fit in that hole. Yeah, it does. So see, I could put that in there. And that was one of my thinkings in making my door the color that it was, is because I wanted it to kind of pick up on the color in the roses. And I think those would have to be moved a little bit. So, you know, even though it's not to scale, it's to imagination. I mean, these, I'm not really trying to make it look realistic. I'm just trying to make it look fun, okay? Now, I also have these little seed things that you can get these nails that don't really have heads on them, and those fit in these little grooves, and you can glue that together and you can create a more fantasy look with that. I have seen people take walnuts, seed pods, all kinds of things to create landscape. Also, you know, this little pine cone, even though it may not see, it stands up more like a little tree, adds a lot of depth and character to the piece. So, lots of imagination going on in these. I have found that I do like the colorful ones better. On these bigger pieces though, I thought this was a little too much, so I whitewashed it over here. I'm trying to figure out if I want to add some aging to it. Now, on the first one that I did, I painted it, and then I used stain on it to make it aged. I didn't really like that look. On the little houses, what I did, like I did with the door on this one, is, man, I got glue going everywhere. It's just shifted. Okay, shouldn't have laid it, had it standing up, should lay it down. Okay, so what you can do is, if you want to age it, like I whitewashed it, and let me show you how I whitewashed it to bring down the color a little bit. Is you take some white paint, it's not a lot, pretty watered down, and you just go over it. Some of you may have whitewashed stuff before. Some people call it pickling. So, and that's where the rougher the wood is, it kind of gathers in those crevices. Now you can let it dry like that. If you thought you had too much on there, you can kind of dab it off. So instead of that, you can have this. Instead of this bright orange, you would have it a little softer. Now, and this is one of the things that I do. I wet my fingers, I dab it in this raw umber, get a little bit on there, and then with my fingers, I kind of do the aging on the corners, maybe around the roof line. And this is, you know, to your like. If you like those bright colors, then you keep them bright. Like I said, on that little one, I did do a little aging of the corners just to give it a kind of a unified look. And you do that, and you can create the look that you want. Never be afraid of getting your fingers dirty while you're doing art. Okay, so now this is, I will do this one because I like these better. This is just raw umber. Like I said, it's left a little rough, but you can go out in your yard, collect bark, and I kind of start to put it together like a puzzle before I start gluing it down. And it always helps to know what you're, like if I'm going to be looking at it this way, I want to make sure that it's going to look its best from that direction when I glue it down. That piece I think will go like that. It's probably going to need some back here in the back. And then I just use E6000 and glue that on there. And if you have a piece, you can, you know, since it's bark that you're just finding in your yard, you can, you know, if you need to break it, you need to cut it. But anyway, so that is how you can create a really rustic little roof. Now, this one, I've left a little hole right there so that I could come back and put a smokestack on there. Now, I don't have any little of these, and I would have to drill a pretty big hole, but I think for these bigger pieces, I may try to use these lug bolts as smokestacks. I think this one would be the right size for this, so I'd want to make sure that I keep that hole open, and I would probably attach that before I get to gluing on my roof. But yeah, that's going to be a pretty big hole. I haven't done that yet, but that's one of, shoot. Nope, no paint on me, not on the floor. Landed right side up, it's gonna be a lucky day. Okay, so those are things that you can do. Like I said, I have a lot of pieces of wood laying around. And when you cut those ends off, just keep them. Oh, this is the one that I'm working on right now. This is meant to be, I have cut the top off the wood picket. This is another piece of scrap wood. You can tell that I was trying to drill a screw through it, and it actually split the wood. You have to be careful with some of this old wood. But this is glued, this is screwed together so that this fits like a little ledge. I'm going to paint my house. I'm going to give it a roof. But one of the things that I'm going to do with this piece is I have these little, like, you know, little file folder labels, and I have the word home. And so I thought that would be cute to put that on there. It's just, you know, I'm still working on this piece. I haven't decided. I actually just screwed it together this morning while I was waiting for you guys. But this would be, you know, it could sit on a shelf. It certainly could. Or I can put a hanger on the back and it can be a wall hanging. I don't know where these pieces are going to live after I get through with them, because I have tons of this stuff. So I'll keep the ones I like and I'll offer the rest of them up to the world. But I certainly hope that you will venture forth and play with what you have. You may have to purchase a little bit of wood, some screws. You know, all I use is craft paint. For this, it's not very much paint. I am fortunate in that I have lots of rusty nails to use for these things. You don't have to use rusty nails. As I've said many times, I have a skewer sticking straight up. I love patina. I love the rust. I'm going to look to see if I have any more little beauties like this little bear laying around, so that I can add character and use some of this stuff up. Like I said, have fun. Play with the art supplies that you have. Try to figure out new ways to use them. Etsy is a surefire bet. If you go on there and you type in miniature tiny houses, tiny scrap wood houses, miniature wooden houses, there's a lot of inspiration, more than I've given you today. So go out there and be creative. Love y'all. Bye.